So let's talk about Rabbi Moshe Zvi Neria. You might know him as the father of the knitted kapot generation. And that's no exaggeration. This was a revolutionary who literally built one of the most influential educational movements in modern Israeli history from scratch. But here's the thing. Behind this incredible success story, there's a deep and frankly, a really surprising conflict.
Okay, just get this. This was a private confession from the man himself. He called himself a Jew of Bediavad. That word, it basically means a compromise. You know, a plan B, something you do when the ideal option isn't available. Can you imagine that? He was looking at his entire life's work, this massive movement he created, and saying that in a perfect world, it shouldn't have even existed.
And that right there, that's the puzzle we're going to solve today. To really get a handle on this man's incredible impact, we have to first understand the deep internal tension that was driving him. We need to see the broken world that he inherited and a pragmatic, loving, and, controversial way he tried to put it back together.
To understand that conflict, you have to see where his whole philosophy came from. I mean, this wasn't some idea born in a quiet, peaceful library. No way. It was forged in the fire of both a personal and a massive national crisis. Just look at his life story. It reads like a map of 20th century Jewish history. He was born in Poland, and at just 17 years old, he leaves everything and everyone he knows to move to Palestine all by himself. He lands right in the middle of this intense period of nation building, becomes a star student of the great Rabbi Kook, and a leader in the B'nai Akiva youth movement. And then, it's 1940. World War II is raging. The world of European Jewry is literally being burned to the ground. And what was his response? He decided to build something. He founded a school.
And this is so important to understand. The gap between the world he came from and the one he was in was huge. The ideal, right, was this rich, unbroken chain of Torah scholarship back in Europe. But the reality? It was a spiritual emergency on two fronts. The Holocaust was physically destroying the heart of that world, and at the same time, here in the land of Israel, a whole generation was being pulled away from religion by these powerful secular movements. He saw this giant vacuum opening up, and he knew someone had to fill it.
So, how did he respond to all this chaos? Not with despair, not at all. He responded with a revolutionary educational philosophy, one that was designed not just to teach kids, but to literally rebuild a world from its very foundations.
He built his entire system on 4 pillars, 4 secrets as he saw them. These were the keys, he believed, to raising a new generation of leaders who were both deeply religious and deeply connected to the land and the people of Israel.
His first secret is the foundation for everything else. For him, education wasn't about the curriculum or the textbooks. It was about love. He had this famous saying, "Every educator must see his students as if they were his own children. This is the secret of education." And for him, this wasn't just some nice fluffy sentiment. It was the absolute non-negotiable starting point for having any real influence at all.
And this quote just brilliantly lays out his next principle. You see, he made this really sharp distinction between a teacher, who just passes on information, and an educator, who actually shapes a person's soul. You can't just talk about values, you have to live them. Your personal example wasn't just important, it was everything.
But here's the thing. These weren't just abstract theories he talked about. He put these ideas into action in the most remarkable and incredibly personal ways.
This one story tells you everything you need to know about his philosophy. He didn't just teach the son of a poor shoemaker. He saw that boy as his own child. He didn't just hand out charity. He created dignified work for the father by going around and collecting all the shoes from the entire yeshiva for him to repair. And he didn't just send a nice card for the bar mitzvah. He hitchhiked through a storm to be there and share in the family's joy. That is education through action.
His long-term vision was just as radical. I mean, think about it. Most leaders, they find their most talented people, their star players, and they hoard them to build up their own school, right? Rabbi Neria did the exact opposite. He found his most brilliant students, this group he called the Aitanim, which means the strong ones, and he actively sent them away. He was seeding a nationwide movement because he understood that the mission was so much bigger than just his own one school.
And this is where his legacy gets, complicated. That same long-term vision connects his own internal conflict directly to a really fierce debate that is still raging in Israel today.
So you have this question of whether yeshiva students should serve in the army. And it's often framed as a simple issue of fairness, everyone sharing the burden. But Rabbi Neria, he saw it through a completely different lens. For him, framing it that way was to fundamentally misunderstand what national security even is.
He argued that full-time Torah students weren't draft dodgers, they were members of a parallel force. He used this ancient analogy of the tribe of Levi, which was set apart from military service to be the nation's spiritual core. In his view, these students were God's legion, conscripted not for just a few years, but for their entire lives, to the mission of spiritual defense, a mission he saw as just as vital as physical defense.
And his justification for this was intensely practical. He said creating these spiritual defenders is like forging steel. It requires continuous, white-hot intensity. Any interruption, any departure into another world, even for a short time, lowers the temperature and ruins the final product. It ultimately weakens the nation's spiritual resilience.
And that brings us right back to that surprising confession we started with. Now we can see it. His whole movement, the yeshivas that combined religious and secular studies, the whole thing was a compromise only when you compare it to that lost ideal of pure, uninterrupted Torah study from Europe. He was a pragmatist, a realist driven by love who built the world that was needed in a time of crisis, not the perfect one that he dreamed of.
So it leaves us with this final, really powerful question about what greatness even is. Does true leadership lie in clinging to a perfect, unattainable vision, or is it found in the courage to look at the broken pieces you've been given and build the best possible world you can?